As for the issue of voting, is it permissible for Muslims living in non-Muslim lands to vote? Then actually, the scholars have answered this question. Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen, likewise some of the other scholars from them in our time, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, and also Sheikh Ubaid bin Abdullah al-Jabari. And actually, there is not one answer that fits all. Each situation requires its particular ruling. Of course, every single alim from Ahlul Sunnah, Ahlul Hadith, has agreed upon the fact that the ideology of democracy is something that is completely alien to Islam and foreign to Islam, and it is an ideology of deviation and misguidance. Why? Because it is not guided by revelation. It is guided by people, with the ideas of the people, man-made laws. So they decide what is halal, they decide what is haram, they decide what is allowed and what is not allowed. And that's why all types of problems and deviations and perversions enter into society. Why? Because it is the rule of the masses, made by the masses, for the masses. It's the rule of the people, by the people, for the people. So where is Allah in all of this? Because it is godless. There is no sense of, any divine law or sharia that intervenes. So they can decide whatever they want as long as the people support it in their masses through either supporting a party in its manifesto that wrote it in. Like for example, that we're going to allow a certain type of marriage between certain types of people, whether it be, tomorrow they say, well, we hold that it is okay for a mother to marry her own son, for example, wal-iyadu billah, because we don't see any moral objection to that, then it becomes law. It will become law because that's how it works. I'm not saying they will make it law tomorrow or the day after or years to come, but that is a viable position because worse things than that have been made legal. Right? Or at least things of equivalence have been made lawful because of people introducing that into their manifestos and then it is voted in. But here the issue of voting that the scholars speak about is not related to acquiescence to democracy or accepting democracy. No, they say it is to prevent a greater evil. So a body of scholars, from them, as I mentioned, Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, Ibn Uthaymeen, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, even Sheikh Ubaid has spoken about this affair, that they mentioned that in certain situations, to avoid a greater evil, that the situation should be presented to the alim in its totality by the people who are experts in the field, and you are not, believe it or not, I don't care how much radio you listen to or internet you follow, you are not experts in this field. People think they are because you can become an expert just by watching 1 hour debate and you think you know it all. But this affair is great. Why? Because it involves the parties coming in and parties being removed, laws being introduced and laws being altered. And many of these are man-made laws. So who decides, number one, who to vote for? Whether you should vote for the lesser evil to avoid the greater evil. And what in reality is a lesser evil. Because what you perceive to be a lesser evil may not be the lesser evil. It may actually be a greater evil as far as Islam is concerned. And this happened. When Salman al-Awda and Safar al-Hawali, that in the I think it was about 15 or 20 years ago in America, that they gave a fatwa to vote for a particular party in the elections. And they got all of their followers in America to vote. And within a year or 2 years, the Muslim lands were being invaded by the same leader that they put into power. Why? Because this affair actually requires thought and it requires an alim. So therefore, without me giving you an answer, I would say that stick to the general principle, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. So therefore it is even if an alim allows a particular voting in a particular place, it is only to avert a greater evil from the Muslims, so a lesser evil is there, so it will be less harmful to the Muslims. Because all of it is harmful. All of it is harmful to us, because none of these people are, in essence, going to support, the Islam and the objectives of Islam and the morality of Islam and the ethics of Islam. They are not supported. They don't even support the ethics of Christianity and the morality of Christianity. So how much more ba'id is Islam from that? They don't care what the Jews say in terms of, certain things that are morally reprehensible to the Jews. They don't accept it. What's morally reprehensible to the Catholics and the Protestants, they don't accept it, or the Church of England. Why? Because ultimately they're going to do what the masses want. And masses, eventually, if you open up the doors to fasad and corruption and depravity and debauchery, that you can do whatever you want, then what are the people going to do? If you remove morality from them, and if you remove this connection to Allah and the creator of the heavens and the earth from them, and you tell them this life is, this is the be-all and the end-all, so what they're going to want to do? They're going to want to do more and more. They want more and more allowance to feed their desires and to feed their lusts and to feed their passions. Right? So sleeping around in this country is not illegal. Having multiple partners, sleeping with a different woman every night, or a woman sleeping with a different man every night, is not illegal in this country. A man sleeping with 10 different men in 1 week is not illegal. Taking of certain types of intoxicants like alcohol and marijuana is not illegal. So, pornography is not illegal in this country. So therefore, there are certain things that they've already allowed and are norms in this society, even same-sex marriages. All of this is allowed. Surrogacy is allowed, where a man puts his seed and gives his seed to a completely strange woman, and she has the baby and she gives the baby back to their family. So what's happened to the lineage? Where's the lineage? Because they don't even, lineage doesn't exist anymore, because there's no concern for it. Things like, just simple things of the family unit are not a concern anymore, because marriage is not important except to, the gay community, because they're the only ones pushing for marriage. Heterosexuals don't care about marriage anymore. Right? But the gay community and the trans community, and they want, same-sex marriages, or I don't know if they are, I don't know what they are. Whatever they are, they want it legalized. Right? This is the reality of the West. There's a movement in the US and in parts of Europe where they want to legalize sex between humans and animals. That's reality. Right? You can, in the United States of America, you can hire an animal for a week. Right? And they will have, types of relations with animals. Because that's how it is. So therefore, look how ba'id, look how far away they are from just normal morals that you are actually born with. They're innate in you, that you would find normally reprehensible. And people, where do you begin? With what type of, dangers, and, suicide rates are on the rise. Self-harming is on the rise. Death through certain types of sexual behavior between a man and a woman. A man will have a relationship with a woman, and during the relationship he'll kill her. And sometimes they get off because they said, well, that's how we have relations. We come close to death. Because that's how morally depraved they are. This is the type of society that you live in. And if you're not thinking to yourselves of a way of getting out of here, then there's something wrong with you. Because things aren't getting better and things aren't getting easier, no matter which party comes into power. Yes, it's possible that a certain party comes in, it may become financially easier for you. Possibly. All right, and you may be able to go to France without a visa. Possibly. So, yeah, it's possible. Right, it's possible. But as far as laws surrounding education in schools, laws surrounding marriage, laws surrounding the rights of Muslims and how Muslims can behave. In certain countries of Europe, they banned halal meat. Denmark, right? Can't slaughter, can't even have halal meat. You're not allowed to educate your children in a segregated environment in the UK. It's illegal. It is illegal in the UK that if you have girls and boys in the same school, it is illegal to segregate them. You are breaking the law, and they will shut you down. Either you change or you shut down your school. That's the law of the land. It's not, open to choice. Well, I've got a choice. Well, what's your choice? You have no choice. You do what they say, or you're breaking the law. So if you do not have something in your mind, you can think about, well, we got elections coming up in, 2 weeks or whenever it is. We got elections in 2 weeks. Great, for 4 years, you're going to have, these people fighting each other in parliament and shouting each other and screaming at each other, and you're thinking things are getting better. Yet, your children are still suffering. And the communities are still facing Islamophobia. I don't know of a single Muslim, and I keep saying I don't know of a single Muslim who never suffered from Islamophobia. Either you were sworn at, or someone shouted at you, someone spat at your wife, someone did something. I haven't met a single Muslim except that he suffered it, not one. And I meet a lot of Muslims across Europe. Everyone at some stage has suffered something, either physical or verbal, or one form or another. Why? Because that's normal for us. That's normal for us. So if you're not thinking about getting out and going to a more Islamic environment where actually people aren't going to swear at you, they actually might look at you and say, Assalamu alaikum, brother. You, mashallah, you come from Britain to our land, welcome. That's what you find in a lot of Muslim countries. Yes, you might lose some money. It's possible. All right? That 40 or 50,000 pound job that you had comes down to 12,000. So what? Your lineage is preserved, your culture is preserved, your religion is preserved. And actually, in my experience, people with the right head on their shoulders, when they leave, they actually become richer because Allah finds them a sustenance and a way out that they could never have imagined. Allah opens the doors. Yeah, the rizq is from Allah, and what is written for you will come to you. Problem is, we're afraid. You think, okay, if I go there, what am I going to do when I get to the airport? Right? But obviously, you don't do that in your normal life. You don't say, I need a job in London, I'll just catch a train and see what happens when I come onto the platform. Is that how you look for a job in London? What do? You prepare, you look around, you look in newspapers, you look for jobs that are available, you look online, you look for, what's the rental income, or what's the rent to be paid for an apartment in London or in Manchester, or wherever you're looking for a job. That's how you do anyway. If you're looking for a job, or if you're looking for somewhere to move, even if you're looking to buy a house, what do? I think I'll just walk in and give them my deposit, knock on the door. You don't do that anyway in normal life. So why would you imagine that you're just going to jump on a flight, end up at the airport and think, what am I going to do now? You don't do that in your normal life, so why would you do that if you're trying to get out of here? You would plan, and you would find contacts, and you would find people, and you would find companies. You would find like-minded people, and you would work with them, and you would network, just like what you did when some of you moved to Birmingham. Most of you sitting here today, I don't think, or many of you sitting here today, I don't think that you were born in Birmingham. You're born elsewhere, but you found your way here. How did you do it? It's possible that some of you just took a train and you ended up at New Street and phoned the Maktaba, and they told you, get a taxi, do what you want. It's possible, because I know that some people did do that, and they just went to one of these letting agencies and somehow they ended up in an apartment. But majority of you didn't do that. You thought about it, and one of the brothers, he said, Wallahi, in 2001, after 9/11, he said, I didn't know where to go. I had a job in Europe, and I didn't know where to go. And everywhere I was turning, I was facing racism. And I thought to myself, I need something for my children, my family. I said, what do you do? He said, I phoned up Sheikh Ubaid. I said, Sheikh, I don't know what to do. The Sheikh said, where are you? He said, I'm in such and such a land in Europe. The Sheikh said to him, go to Birmingham. Once you're settled in Birmingham and you built yourself, established yourself, then look for a country to go to, meaning from the lands of Islam. So he said, after that I planned. I sold slowly what I did. I found out what to do, how to move to Birmingham, accommodation. I visited for a weekend. I went back, spoke to my wife. Then I took my wife. Then I showed them. Then I took the kids and I showed them. And I thought to myself, I'm staying in Birmingham up until Allah makes it easy for me to leave. So he stayed in Birmingham. He had a huge, he said that his job in Europe, that he was one of the highest paid in his field. He said, I moved to Birmingham, and he said, I moved down to minimum wage. He said, I moved to minimum wage for about 6 years. In that time, I was looking. Then I got a job, then I got another job, then Allah opened the doors, and I moved back, and I moved to a Muslim country, and he's been settled there for about 8 years. Why? Because, people think and they plan ahead. There's no future here. Allahu A'lam. But in our lifetimes, and Allah knows best, unless something drastic happens and, the Queen decides to take Shahada tomorrow. And it is possible. You hear rumors about Diana, don't you? You never know, Allahu A'lam. Because even Diana became very close to some prominent Muslims. Like Imran Khan, she went to visit him in Pakistan. And Imran Khan's first wife was one of the wealthiest from one of the wealthiest Jewish families in Britain. From the goldsmiths. She was from the from the most wealthiest Jewish families in Britain, from the most notable. She became Muslim. And she had children with him. And she moved to Pakistan. And her friend was who? Other wealthy women similar to her, like Diana. And they came, and you see them in Pakistani garments, which at least they're more modest than what they wear here. And, it happened. So it can happen. So I'm not saying, I didn't say it it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's possible. Anyone can become Muslim. But things as they stand are unlikely to change. So therefore, you as, right-minded, intelligent adults need to think, how long am I going to stay here in a rented accommodation that I don't own? Me and my husband are paying for it, and we work every hour of the day. We leave when there's no light, and we come back when there's no light. In the winter, right? You leave at 7, it's dark. You come back at 6, it's dark. So you only see your children in the dark. What kind of life is that? Wallahi, what kind of life is that, ya ikhwan? You go to those countries, there's barakah in the time. You go to Morocco, you go to Algeria, you go to Egypt, you go to Saudi, you go to Kuwait, you go to Pakistan, you go to those countries. Wallahi, there's barakah in the time. Indonesia, wherever, in Malaysia, Indonesia. Some of them are better than others, but in all of them there is khair, inshallah. In all of them there is khair. At least there's sun, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakumullahu khairan. Sorry for taking your time. Wa subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.